your song, 10th anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The first time I heard Indran was, actually when I read Indran's work, was 2 decades ago. And it was much later that Usha and I invited Indran to read at Matwaala, and that was in New York, I think at the Asian American Writers Workshop. So it has been a very long, in India, in Hindi we say mulaqat. That mulaqat was a fabulous mulaqat, a meeting. So the first time I read Indran's work was, it was a poetry book called The Splintered Face, and I reviewed it for a magazine, and now I don't even remember what that magazine was, but I remember reading those poems and thinking, wow, you know, this poet is so vivid in the way he expresses himself. And through the years I've been reading many of his other poems, and I've been really feeling the brilliance and the weight of his work. He really is a poet of witness, because he brings to us, please come. He brings to us that kind of energy that is needed in witnessing, and it can be anything from a personal relationship to something that he views around him, to observations about major things that's going on in our world, whether it is Sri Lanka or somewhere else, or the United States. Some of the important things that we need to talk about, he finds the words to be able to express that. And at this time, I think in Matwaala, we feel that we need voices like Indran's. So I feel that he is our lodestar, our shining star, that's sort of leading the way in trying to get poets to write about many of the things that we may be even afraid to write about. So I think, you know, he gives us that signal saying, it's okay, you know, you can go there, you can do this. And I think he's also pointing out to the fact that our civilian life is fragile. Our institutions, democratic institutions, whether it is here or elsewhere, they are sort of wobbling. And it is the poets that can express some of the things that are going on around us. And we see that in many of his poems. And the brilliance of Indran is that he does not just express himself in one language, but in multiple languages, which is very rare for a poet. He writes in French, Portuguese, Spanish, Asian Creole. And as a Tamil, originally from Sri Lanka, he has seen what, I mean, we used to call it Ceylon, and then it became Sri Lanka. He's seen what has happened in that country, when also continuing to happen, and is able to traverse that whole map of South Asia and also bring us back into our current positionalities in this country. I'd like to mention 2 quotations which I feel draw us into some of the central tenets of his writing. And one is in one of his poems in Poetry Foundation, where he's thinking about the next generation, and he says, we have the same obligation to save ourselves and our children. Oh, the children, look at them, give them food in school and a new set of clothes. Give them a chance, whether you are red or blue. The eye of the hurricane does not discriminate. We are your tumbling weeds, hurling cars, flooding banks, and we are the diggers of the dikes. We can teach you so many languages and visions. You would learn so much, you would never say, lock us up. And I think he is able to bring the reality of brokenness as well as balance it with the possibility of singing. And I'd like to quote this. Tell us, leopard, leaning on your branch. Tell us, flamingos, bend your necks and pour wine, hoopoes, kingfishers, cranes. Have you got your messages on the bill? Are you ready to sing? Are you going to sing? Monsoon, are you going to sing? Monsoon, are you going to sing? So Indran, I would say, please continue singing and help us to sing as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really
Pramila. I have not prepared any speech. I just want to say thank you for quoting and bringing me back to my first poems, as you just did with mentioning the hoopos and the kingfishers and that first island that I, in one book called, I said rest in peace and on R.I.P. And also to the poem that I wrote called The Migrant's Reply after the current president in his first term called for the construction of a wall between Mexico and the United States. And I find I'm much clearer now than I've ever been before that I want to be a border crosser, and I want to cross not only physical borders, geographic borders, but also linguistic borders and emotional borders, and eliminate the distances between human beings wherever they are, through languages, learning their languages, learning each other's how we speak. And so thank you for this, the privilege of this. I've been very lucky. I grew up in a family where my father encouraged poetry. He was a poet, a great poet. My mother encouraged me to read and taught me to read, and so on. So I was lucky early on, and then I got to know the social role of the poet, being introduced to Allen Ginsberg early on when I was 17, and he taught me what the political role of the poet is, what you can do. I mean, he was kicked out of various cities for his outrageous advocacy of absolute, liberty, and so I learned a lot from that example. I just saw the film twice or three times on planes. I just got back today from Argentina where my daughter is living and studying, and the film was the film about the young Bob Dylan, and I Complete Unknown. I've now seen it about 3 or 4 times on the film on the long flights. And what a beautiful film! What a beautiful analysis of the dilemmas that all creatives go through. The emotional dilemmas, the relationship dilemmas, and just and sometimes not knowing, blowing in the wind. I mean, if you actually read the lyrics, the effect of those lyrics, and then the attention to the sick in that film. The Guthrie, at the Woody Guthrie in the hospital, and the devotion of the young 19-year-old Dylan going to see him and then going to see him again and again. Though it's clear that he will never sing again, Guthrie. He will never be able to speak really again. But that kind of devotion to the tradition, and then the breaking of the tradition that Dylan did when he moved out of folk. So that breaking of traditions is what poets do. I think we make it new. That's what make it new means. And so thank you for this opportunity, and thanks for making the trip down from New York to be here and to say these beautiful words. I hope you will publish those words someday. And grateful for all of your presence.